Hello Star Wars fans, and welcome to episode 53 of Journey into Legends. Today we are going to be reading Tales of the Bounty Hunters. Tales of the Bounty Hunters was released in 1996 and is a collection of short stories centering on the bounty hunters sent after the Millennium Falcon in The Empire Strikes Back. I'm really excited to start reading these stories. I really enjoyed the other two Tales books that I've read, and I think this one has the potential to be the best one yet. Anyways, without further ado, let's read and review. Alright, so our first story is called Therefore I Am, The Tale of IG-88 by Kevin J. Anderson. I thought this one was a decent start. I liked the story Kevin J. Anderson had to tell, with there being multiple IG-88s, their droid revolution, their attempt to take over and control the second Death Star. It was a very out-there story, but I really appreciated that. What made this story a bit annoying to read, though, was simply Kevin J. Anderson's writing. Like every single one of his books that I've read so far, this story suffers from good ideas being wasted by mediocre writing. I thought his portrayal of characters like IG-88 and Darth Vader were very lackluster, and I think his prose is just way too simplistic and childish to take seriously. Overall, I thought this story was fine, but nothing too special. Alright, so our next story is called Payback, The Tale of Dengar by Dave Wolverton. And this one was really fun. I really enjoyed the story in this one. I liked the exploration of Dengar's past, the vendetta he has for Han Solo, and I thought his and Manaru's love story was surprisingly endearing. I also really enjoyed how this story tied into stories from the other Tales books, such as the Quarren in Jabba's palace, and Dengar finding Boba Fett after the Sarlacc pit incident. But my main issue with this story is the characterization of Dengar. Personally, I've never imagined Dengar as an emotionless cyborg before. I've always assumed he's just a really skilled mercenary that happens to wear bandages around his face, so his portrayal here was a bit disappointing. But overall, this was a decent story and definitely a step up from the IG-88 one. Alright, so our third story is called The Prize Pelt, The Tale of Bossk by Kathy Tyers, and this one was by far my least favorite story so far. I don't know what exactly I was expecting, but it certainly wasn't this. Now, there were a number of reasons why I didn't enjoy this story too much, whether it was the weak writing, a boring plot, or just Kathy Tyers' usual confusing prose. But my biggest issue with this story is that it just wasn't even about Bossk. Yes, he was in it, and he played a fairly large role in the plot, but he certainly wasn't the main character. Instead, we follow two random bounty hunters, a girl named Tinian, and a Wookiee named Chen Lambic. Now, I actually thought these two were decent characters, and by the end, I actually really enjoyed their dynamic. But why were they the focus of this story? And even worse is that they pretty much spent the whole story making Bossk look like a fool. Now, I did a little bit of research, and it seems that these characters are from a few other short stories by Kathy Tyers, which begs the question, why did Kathy Tyers think this was the best opportunity to continue their story? Just write another story with them instead of overshadowing Bossk in what should have been his story. Anyways, let's move on to the next story, which hopefully will be better. Alright, so our second to last story is called Of Possible Futures, The Tale of Zuckuss and Forlom by M. Shane Bell, and this was by far my favorite story thus far. First off, I absolutely loved the way Zuckuss and Forlom were characterized, and I really enjoyed their dynamic. Secondly, this story does what the Bossk story failed to do, which is that it found a way to balance following our titular bounty hunter characters with following other characters, which in this case was Commander Torrin Farr and the other rebels on one of the Hoth transports. But easily my favorite part of this story was the ending, with Zuckuss and Forlom actually joining the rebellion. I thought that was such an unexpected but really fun way to end the story, and I hope that they remain with the rebellion in any later appearances. Overall, this story was such a breath of fresh air, and easily the best so far. Alright, so our final story is called The Last One Standing, The Tale of Boba Fett by Daniel Keyes Moran, and I absolutely loved almost everything about this story. I honestly think this story could have been stretched out into its own standalone novel the way it manages to span over 3 decades, yet still tell a cohesive story. I loved its portrayal of Boba Fett, especially how honorable of a character he is. He's not evil, he's not even necessarily a villain, he's just a guy with strict values and a code of honor that he follows. We get to see the moment that Boba Fett and Han Solo met for the first time, as well as the moment when, in their old age, they finally put their differences aside. We also got to learn the fate of Labria, the Deveronian from Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina, which was a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. The only thing I'm a bit iffy on is some of Boba Fett's backstory that gets fleshed out in this story, with him being a journeyman protector named Jaster Muriel. Obviously, that doesn't quite line up with what we got from the prequels, but apparently later stories sort of rectified that, so I'm not going to dwell on it. Overall, though, this was an awesome story. I'm not sure whether it's my favorite of the bunch, or whether I still prefer the Zuckuss and Forlom story, but at the end of the day, both were really fantastic. So overall, this was a fun little collection of stories, albeit a bit inconsistent in quality. I think this book was definitely better than Tales from Jabba's Palace. However, I do think that I prefer Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina simply because this book didn't have as much of an interconnected story as I was hoping for. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for my next video where I'll be reviewing the first 6 books of the Galaxy of Fear series by John Whitman. See ya.